Kelly's hand froze. The red letters on the computer screen pierced her eyes. Reservation cancelled. 3:15 a.m. The lobby was empty, with only fluorescent lights casting cold illumination. The door opened. A man with a worn backpack entered. Shabby jacket, faded jeans, and strangely clean sneakers. Kelly looked up. The man's eyes swept across the lobby, as if calculating everything. "I have a reservation for room 7. The man's voice was low. Kelly's fingers tapped the keyboard. The screen flickered. The reservation record had disappeared. "I'm sorry, but the reservation has been cancelled." The man stepped closer. Kelly stepped back. The man's watch glinted under the fluorescent light. At that moment, Kelly's breath stopped. That watch definitely looked expensive. "Are there any other rooms available?" Kelly's heart began to race. She checked the computer again. There were no vacant rooms. But she read something different in the man's eyes. Not desperation, but expectation. "Just a moment." Kelly stood up. She grabbed the key to the staff break room. The man smiled. That smile struck Kelly's chest. "You can spend the night there." The man nodded. He glanced at Kelly's name tag and said, "Thank you, Kelly." Kelly's body stiffened. His gaze was too natural, as if he already knew her. In the hallway leading to the break room, the man suddenly stopped. He was looking at the hotel's historical photos hanging on the wall. Kelly turned around. "Are you interested?" "It's an old hotel." There was a strange emotion mixed in the man's voice. Kelly noticed. It wasn't the reaction of someone seeing those photos for the first time. She opened the break room door. A narrow space, an old sofa, a broken coffee machine. The man put down his backpack. At that moment, the backpack fell to the floor. Something hard inside hit the ground. It was a metallic sound. The man quickly picked up the backpack. But Kelly had already seen it. What she glimpsed through the gap in the backpack was a laptop. A top-of-the-line model at that. "Please rest comfortably." Kelly was about to close the door. The man said, "Thank you so much. This kind of kindness. It's been a while." His voice cracked. Kelly's chest grew warm. At that moment, she remembered what her mother had said from her hospital bed. People show their true selves when they're in trouble. Kelly's hand searched through the cabinet. An old blanket was hiding in the corner. Dust flew up. Kelly coughed. The man looked around the break room. His eyes stopped at the small refrigerator in the corner. Kelly's lunchbox was visible. "Are you hungry?" Kelly opened the refrigerator. There was kimbap that her mother had made. It was the last roll. The man shook his head. "I'm fine." But Kelly was already taking out the kimbap. She unwrapped the plastic packaging. The kimbap smelled of sesame oil. The man's eyes wavered. Kelly put half the kimbap on a plate. She pushed it toward the man. At that moment, the man's hand trembled. Just slightly, but Kelly didn't miss it. The man took a bite of the kimbap. He closed his eyes. His shoulders sagged, as if he was putting down something he had been holding onto for a long time. "It's delicious." His voice cracked. Kelly's chest grew warm. She remembered her mother making kimbap from her hospital bed, rolling the seaweed with trembling hands. The man finished all the kimbap. He cleaned the plate completely. Kelly spread the blanket on the sofa. The man lay down using his backpack as a pillow. "Thank you." The man closed his eyes. But Kelly knew that he wasn't sleeping. His breathing was too shallow. Just as Kelly was about to close the door, the man murmured, "It tastes like kimbap my mom made." Kelly's hand stopped at the door handle. How did he know? And why did his voice sound so sad? 6 a.m. Kelly quietly opened the break room door. The man had disappeared. Only the blanket was neatly folded. The plate was also washed. Kelly returned to the front desk and her eyes widened. An envelope was placed on the counter. Inside the envelope was a $50 bill. And a note. "For the kimbap. Thank you." Kelly's hand trembled. $50 for one roll of kimbap. It was a lot of money for someone struggling with her mother's hospital bills. But something was strange. She checked the lobby CCTV. At 5:30 a.m., the man was quietly leaving. But his gait was different. Not yesterday's tired traveler, but more like a confident businessman. 2 p.m. Kelly was preparing for her shift change when the lobby door opened. It was the same man. But his clothes had changed. Clean shirt, pressed pants. The man walked to the front desk. His eyes met Kelly's. The man smiled. Kelly's heart raced. "Do you need another room?" Kelly asked. The man shook his head. Instead, he placed a business card on the counter. Kelly picked up the card. Only the name Liam was written on it. No company name, no title. "Would you like to have coffee if you have time?" Liam said. Kelly's face flushed red. The manager was watching from a distance. Kelly looked at her watch. 10 minutes until shift change. Just a moment. Kelly ran to her locker. She looked in the mirror. Her hair was a mess. She quickly tied it up. Applied lip balm. Liam was waiting. Then something strange happened. The manager passed near Liam and stopped for a moment. He made what seemed like a greeting gesture. When Kelly approached, the manager quickly left. Liam extended his arm. "Shall we go?" The coffee shop door opened. Liam entered first. Kelly followed. The cafe employee saw Liam and hesitated for a moment. "Welcome." The employee's voice was brighter than usual. Liam nodded. Kelly found it strange. It seemed like his first time at this cafe, but the employee was oddly welcoming. They sat at a corner table. Liam ordered without even looking at the menu. Double shot espresso, no sugar. Kelly was surprised. Someone who had looked tired until yesterday suddenly made a demanding order. Kelly ordered an Americano. Liam leaned his elbows on the table. He looked straight at Kelly. His eyes were different from yesterday. Sharper. "Thank you for yesterday," Liam said. Kelly shook her head. It was the right thing to do. The corner of Liam's mouth lifted. It wasn't a smile. It was an expression of confirming something. The coffee arrived. Liam took a sip of the espresso. He didn't frown. Kelly was surprised. He was someone who drank bitter coffee like water. "How's work? It must be hard working at the hotel," Liam asked. Kelly's chest grew warm. She hesitated whether to talk about working day and night because of her mother's hospital bills. "It's okay," Kelly answered briefly. Liam took out his wallet. At that moment, Kelly's breath stopped. A black card was visible in his wallet. A platinum card. Liam quickly closed his wallet. But it was too late. Kelly had already seen it. A card that a backpacker couldn't possibly have. "Excuse me, but what do you do for work?" Kelly asked. Liam's hand paused for a moment. The hand holding the coffee cup trembled slightly. "Travel. Just traveling," Liam answered. But there was the tremor of a lie in his voice. Kelly knew. This man was hiding something. Kelly's phone buzzed violently on the counter. She grabbed it, expecting another hospital bill notification. Instead, Liam's name flashed on the screen. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The text was simple. "Dir. ECT." Kelly stared at the words until they blurred. Her shift ended in 20 minutes. She could say no. She should say no. Her fingers moved before her brain could stop them. At exactly 3 p.m., Kelly pushed through the service door. The alley was empty except for dumpsters and cigarette butts. Then she heard it. The low rumble of an engine. A black sedan turned the corner. Not a taxi. Not an Uber. Something expensive. The car stopped. The window rolled down. Liam sat behind the wheel, sunglasses covering those calculating eyes. Kelly's legs felt weak. This wasn't the backpacker from yesterday. This was someone else entirely. Kelly's hand trembled on the door handle. The interior was leather. Real leather. The kind that cost more than her monthly salary. Liam pulled away from the curb without a word. His movements were precise. Practiced. Like he'd done this route 1,000 times. Where are we going? You said you'd show me the real Chicago. Kelly's stomach twisted. She had said that. Yesterday, when she thought he was just another lost tourist. Now, sitting in this car that probably cost more than her apartment, she realized how naive she'd been. Turn left here. Her voice came out smaller than intended. Liam followed her directions without hesitation. They drove through neighborhoods she'd grown up in. Places tourists never saw. Places people like him never went. The market appeared around the corner. Fulton Street Market. Not the gentrified version downtown. The real one. Where her mother used to take her before the cancer. Before everything fell apart. Liam parked between two rusted pickup trucks. The sedan looked like a spaceship among the beaten cars. Kelly watched his face as he took in the scene. Vendors shouting in Spanish. Children running between stalls. The smell of fried plantains mixing with exhaust fumes. This is it. This is it. They walked between the stalls. Kelly watched Liam's reaction to everything. The way his eyes tracked the security cameras. The way he noted exit routes. The way he moved like he was cataloging threats. Who was this man? An elderly woman called out from behind a fruit stand. Mrs. Gonzalez. Kelly had known her since childhood. The woman's face lit up when she saw Kelly, then darkened when she noticed Liam. Kelly's throat tightened. Mrs. Gonzalez spoke in rapid Spanish, asking if Kelly was safe, if this man was bothering her. Kelly answered in English, hoping Liam wouldn't understand. He's a friend. From work. But Liam stepped forward. He spoke in perfect Spanish. Fluent. Native-level fluent. He complimented Mrs. Gonzalez's mangoes, asked about her grandson's baseball team, mentioned the weather like he'd lived in this neighborhood his entire life. Mrs. Gonzalez's expression transformed. She beamed at Liam, pressed a bag of fruit into his hands, refused his money. Kelly stood frozen. The backpacker story was crumbling with every word he spoke. They walked deeper into the market. Liam bought tamales from a vendor who clearly recognized him. Not his face. His presence. The way the man's posture straightened. The way he offered his best product without being asked. You've been here before. It wasn't a question. Liam stopped walking. For a moment, his mask slipped. Kelly saw something raw underneath. Pain. Guilt. Loss. A long time ago. They found a bench by the river. The Chicago River, brown and sluggish, reflecting the afternoon sun. Kelly unwrapped her tamale. The corn masa was still warm. Steam rose from the filling. Tell me about your mother. The words came out of nowhere. Kelly choked on her bite. Liam was staring at the water, his profile sharp against the light. What about her? You work night shifts to pay for her treatment. You bring her homemade food. You haven't taken a day off in 6 months. Kelly's blood turned to ice. How do you know that? Liam turned to face her. Behind the sunglasses, she could feel his eyes boring into her soul. I notice things. The simple statement terrified her more than any threat could have. Who notices things like that? Who keeps track of a hotel employee's schedule? Who cares enough to watch? She has pancreatic cancer. The words tumbled out before Kelly could stop them. Once she started, she couldn't stop. She told him about the diagnosis 6 months ago. The treatments that weren't working. The bills that kept coming. The way her mother smiled even when the pain was unbearable. Liam listened without interrupting. His jaw tightened with each detail. His hands clenched into fists on his knees. When Kelly mentioned the hospital's final notice, he stood up abruptly. Show me. What? The hospital. Show me where she is. Kelly's heart pounded. This was crazy. She barely knew this man. but something in his voice made her nod. Something desperate. Something that sounded like he needed this more than she did. St. Mary's Hospital looked like a prison from the outside. Gray concrete and small windows. The kind of place where hope went to die. Kelly led Liam through the automatic doors, past the gift shop selling wilted flowers, past the cafeteria with its smell of disinfectant and overcooked vegetables. The elevator ride to the 4th floor felt eternal. Kelly watched the numbers climb. Liam stood perfectly still beside her, but she could feel the tension radiating from his body like heat from a furnace. Room 412. Kelly's mother lay propped up in bed, an oxygen mask covering her face. Tubes snaked from her arms to machines that beeped steadily. Her eyes were closed, but Kelly could tell she wasn't sleeping. Just resting. Conserving energy. Mom. Maria Rivera opened her eyes. They were still bright despite everything. Still kind. She saw Kelly first, smiled behind the mask. Then she noticed Liam. Her entire body went rigid. The heart monitor started beeping faster. Maria's eyes went wide with recognition. Not confusion. Not curiosity. Recognition. She knew who Liam was. Liam stepped closer to the bed. His hands were shaking now. Visibly shaking. He reached toward Maria's face, then stopped himself. "Hello, Maria." His voice was barely a whisper. But Maria heard it. She tried to sit up, fighting against the tubes and wires. Kelly rushed to her side, confused and terrified. "Mom, what's wrong? Do you know him?" Maria pulled off her oxygen mask with trembling fingers. Her voice was hoarse, barely audible. "Liam? Is it really you?" The machines were going crazy now. Beeping and flashing. Kelly looked between her mother and Liam, understanding nothing but feeling everything shift beneath her feet. Liam knelt beside the bed. Tears were streaming down his face. Real tears. The kind that couldn't be faked. "I'm sorry, Maria. I'm so sorry." Maria reached out with a hand that was nothing but skin and bones. She touched Liam's cheek. Her own tears started falling. "I never thought I'd see you again." Kelly's world tilted. The room spun. Her mother knew Liam. Had known him for a long time. Long enough to cry at seeing him. Long enough to forgive him for something that required an apology. "Mom, I don't understand. How do you?" "Kelly." Maria's voice was stronger now. She looked at her daughter with eyes full of secrets. Full of pain Kelly had never seen before. "There are things I never told you. Things about before you were born." The heart monitor flatlined for 3 seconds. Then resumed its frantic beeping. A nurse ushed in, took one look at the readings, and started checking Maria's vitals. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave. She needs to rest." Kelly stood frozen. Liam was already backing toward the door, his face white as the hospital walls. But before he left, he looked at Maria one more time. "We'll talk soon." It sounded like a promise. And a threat. The whispers started the moment Kelly walked into the hotel lobby the next morning. They cut through the marble-floored space like knives, sharp and deliberate. 3 housekeeping staff huddled near the elevator bank, their voices dropping to urgent murmurs when they saw her. She was seen with him. In his car. That expensive black one. Kelly's stomach clenched. She kept her head down, walking toward the front desk with measured steps. But she could feel their eyes tracking her movement, dissecting every detail of her appearance for clues. Sarah from accounting intercepted her before she reached her station. Sarah's smile was too wide, too interested. The kind of smile that preceded interrogation. "So, Kelly, heard you made a new friend." The words hung in the air like smoke. Kelly's hands trembled as she set down her purse. Around them, the morning shift was pretending to work while actually listening to every word. "I don't know what you mean." "The guest in the expensive car. The one who's been asking about you." Kelly's blood froze. "Asking about me?" Sarah's eyes gleamed with the satisfaction of someone holding explosive information. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a theatrical whisper that somehow carried further than normal speech. Marcus from security saw him at the manager's office yesterday. They were looking at employee files. The lobby tilted. Kelly gripped the counter to steady herself. Employee files. Her file. Her background check. Her mother's insurance information. Her emergency contacts. Her entire life laid out in manila folders for a stranger to examine. That's impossible. Is it? Sarah's question was loaded with implications Kelly didn't want to understand. The other employees had stopped pretending to work now. They were watching openly, waiting for Kelly's reaction like spectators at a car crash. The elevator chimed. The doors opened. Manager Henry Marks stepped out, his usually composed face tight with stress. His eyes swept the lobby, taking in the cluster of employees around Kelly, the obvious tension crackling through the air. Rivera. My office. Now. Kelly's legs nearly gave out. In 3 years of working here, she'd never been called to the manager's office. Never been singled out. Never been in trouble. The walk to Henry's office felt like a death march. Every step echoed off the marble floors. Every employee she passed looked up from their work with expressions ranging from pity to curiosity to barely concealed satisfaction. Henry's office was a monument to corporate intimidation. Dark wood paneling. Leather chairs that cost more than Kelly's monthly salary. Windows that looked out over the city like a predator surveying its territory. Henry didn't offer her a seat. He stood behind his desk, his hands clasped behind his back, his face a mask of professional disappointment. Do you want to explain to me why a guest has been asking detailed questions about your work schedule? Kelly's mouth went dry. I don't. Your shift patterns. Your break times. Your family situation. Each word hit like a physical blow. Kelly's vision blurred at the edges. This was wrong. This was all wrong. People didn't just ask about hotel employees. Not unless they were planning something. Not unless they had ulterior motives. I gave him directions to the market. That's all. Henry's laugh was cold and humorless. He opened a folder on his desk. Kelly caught a glimpse of her employee photo, her emergency contact information, her mother's hospital details. Directions to the market don't require accessing personnel files. The room spun. Kelly gripped the back of the leather chair, her knuckles white against the dark material. Liam had looked at her file, had studied her personal information, had researched her like she was a target. I don't understand. Neither do I. But I intend to find out. Henry's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his entire demeanor changed. The professional mask slipped, revealing something that looked almost like fear. He's here. Who's here? But Henry was already moving toward the door, straightening his tie, checking his reflection in the dark window. Kelly had never seen him nervous before. Never seen him anything but completely in control. Stay here. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone. He left Kelly alone in the office. Through the glass partition, she could see him walking toward the lobby with quick, purposeful steps. She pressed her face against the window, trying to see what had caused his sudden panic. The lobby was in chaos. Employees were running in every direction. The usually composed front desk staff looked like they'd seen a ghost. Sarah from accounting was practically hyperventilating near the elevator bank. And then Kelly saw him. Liam walked through the front entrance like he owned the place. Which, Kelly was beginning to realize, he might actually do. Gone was the casual backpacker outfit. Gone were the worn jeans and faded jacket. He wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than Kelly made in 6 months. His hair was styled. His posture was different. Commanding. Authoritative. This wasn't the man who had eaten her mother's kimbap in a break room. This was someone else entirely. Henry reached him first, extending his hand with an obsequiousness that made Kelly's stomach turn. Liam shook it briefly, his attention already scanning the lobby. Looking for something. Or someone. His eyes found hers through the office window. Kelly's heart stopped. Even from across the lobby, even through the glass, She could see the intensity in his gaze. The calculation. The purpose. This had all been planned. Every moment. Every conversation. Every kindness. She'd been played. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed into Henry's leather chair. The expensive material felt cold against her skin, foreign and unwelcoming. Liam was walking toward the office now. Henry trailed behind him like a nervous dog, clearly trying to explain something, his hands gesturing frantically. But Liam wasn't listening. His focus was entirely on Kelly. The office door opened. "Hello, Kelly." His voice was the same. That was the cruelest part. The voice that had thanked her for the kimbap, that had asked about her mother, that had spoken perfect Spanish to Mrs. Gonzalez. The voice that had made her feel special, important, cared for. "Who are you?" The question came out as a whisper. Liam closed the door behind him, leaving Henry outside. The glass partition suddenly felt like a fishbowl, with Kelly as the trapped specimen and the entire hotel staff as spectators. "My name is Liam Howard. I'm the CEO of Howard Investments." The words hit Kelly like bullets. Theo. Investments. She thought of the black sedan, the platinum credit card, the way everyone seemed to know him. The pieces were falling into place, creating a picture she didn't want to see. Howard Investments owns this hotel. It wasn't a question. Kelly could see the truth in his eyes, in the way he OD, in the expensive watch that caught the light from Henry's window. She thought of all the times she'd worried about losing her job, about the hotel's financial troubles, about the rumors of new ownership. He had been evaluating her, testing her, playing with her like a cat with a mouse. Why? Liam moved closer, and Kelly instinctively pressed back into the chair. He stopped, seeming to realize that his presence was threatening her. "I wanted to see how employees treated guests when they thought no one was watching." "So you lied to me." "I never lied. I just didn't tell you everything." The distinction felt meaningless. Kelly's entire body was shaking now, adrenaline and betrayal coursing through her veins like poison. "You researched me. You looked at my files. I had to know if your kindness was genuine." "My kindness." Kelly's voice was rising now, loud enough that she could see employees pressing against the glass partition, trying to hear. She didn't care. Let them listen. Let them all hear how their new owner had manipulated one of their own. "You used my mother's illness. You used my desperation." Liam's composure cracked slightly. She saw something that might have been guilt flicker across his face. "That wasn't my intention." "What was your intention?" The question hung between them like a challenge. Outside the office, Kelly could see the entire hotel staff gathering. This confrontation was becoming a public spectacle, and she was the main attraction. Liam looked at the crowd, then back at Kelly. When he spoke, his voice was quieter, more careful. "I wanted to find employees who cared about their work, who treated people with dignity regardless of their appearance or status. So you pretended to be poor. I presented myself as an ordinary guest, with a $50,000 watch." Liam glanced down at his wrist, where the expensive timepiece gleamed accusingly. Kelly had noticed it from the beginning, had pushed down her suspicions because she wanted to believe in the kindness of a stranger. "You passed every test, Kelly. Your compassion, your integrity, your dedication to your family. You're exactly the kind of employee we need in leadership positions." The words should have been flattering, should have been the opportunity of a lifetime. Instead, they felt like the final insult. "You think this is about a promotion?" Kelly stood up from the chair, her body vibrating with rage. Through the glass, she could see phones being pulled out, employees recording what was clearly becoming a viral moment. "You think you can manipulate me, lie to me, invade my privacy, and then offer me a job as compensation?" Liam's eyes widened slightly. This wasn't going the way he'd planned. The confident CEO mask was slipping, revealing something more human underneath. More vulnerable. "Kelly, please. Let me explain." "Explain what?" How you used my mother's cancer as a test. How you pretended to care about my struggles while secretly judging whether I was worthy of your approval." Her voice was echoing off the office walls now, carrying through the glass to the assembled crowd. She could see Henry trying to disperse the employees, but they weren't moving. This was better than television. "You want to know what I think of your test?" Kelly moved toward the door, her hand on the handle. Liam stepped forward as if to stop her, then seemed to think better of it. "I think you're exactly like every other rich person who thinks poverty is a character flaw and kindness is a commodity to be bought and sold." She yanked open the door, and the noise from the lobby rushed in. Dozens of conversations stopped mid-sentence. Phones were definitely recording now. This would be on social media within minutes. Kelly turned back to face Liam, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent lobby. "I don't want your job. I don't want your money. And I don't want to see you again." She walked out of the office, through the crowd of staring employees, across the marble lobby that had been her workplace for 3 years. Behind her, she could hear Henry's voice raised in damage control, trying to explain to the staff what they had just witnessed. But Kelly wasn't listening anymore. She pushed through the front doors of the hotel, out into the Chicago afternoon, leaving behind the job she needed, the man who had deceived her, and any illusion she'd had about the kindness of strangers. The last thing she heard before the doors closed was the sound of her phone buzzing with notifications. The video was already going viral. The video had 3 million views by the time Kelly got home. Her phone buzzed constantly with notifications, friend requests, interview offers from local news stations. The headline on the Chicago Tribune's website read, "Hotel Employee Confronts Billionaire CEO in Viral Showdown." Below it was a grainy screenshot of Kelly's face, twisted with rage and betrayal. She turned off her phone and threw it across her tiny apartment. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor, the screen cracking in a spider web pattern that matched how she felt inside. The apartment felt smaller than usual. 1 bedroom, barely enough space for her bed and a dresser. A kitchenette with appliances older than she was. A bathroom with a shower that only worked if you hit the faucet just right. This was her reality. This was what Liam Howard had been studying when he accessed her files. Kelly sank onto her bed and buried her face in her hands. The sheets still smelled like the lavender detergent her mother had bought in bulk before the cancer took her savings. Before everything fell apart. Her mother. Kelly's stomach lurched. Maria would have seen the news by now. Would have watched her daughter's meltdown broadcast to the world. Would have questions Kelly couldn't answer about how she knew Liam Howard, about why a billionaire CEO had been asking about their family. The broken phone buzzed against the wall. Even with a cracked screen, the notifications kept coming. Kelly crawled across the floor and managed to read the latest message through the damaged glass. It was from the hospital. "Your mother is asking for you. Please come immediately." Kelly's blood turned to ice. Maria never asked for anything. Never demanded Kelly's time or attention. If she was asking, something was wrong. Very wrong. The cab ride to St. Mary's felt eternal. Kelly watched the city blur past through windows streaked with rain that had started falling while she was inside. The weather matched her mood perfectly. Gray, cold, and threatening to get worse. The hospital lobby was busier than usual. Visiting hours were ending, and families were saying their goodbyes. Kelly pushed through the crowd, her heart pounding with each step toward the elevator. 4th floor. Room 412. The same path she'd walked hundreds of times over the past 6 months. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt final. Maria was awake when Kelly entered the room. More awake than she'd been in weeks. Her eyes were bright, alert, focused. The kind of clarity that sometimes came before the end. "Kelly." Her mother's voice was stronger than it had been in days. Kelly rushed to the bedside, taking Maria's hand in both of hers. The skin was paper-thin, cold despite the heated room. "Mom, I'm so sorry. About the video, about everything. I didn't mean for it to become public." Maria squeezed Kelly's hand. With surprising strength. "I saw it. I know you're disappointed in me. I know I embarrassed our family. I'm proud of you." The words stopped Kelly mid-sentence. She looked at her mother's face, searching for sarcasm or disappointment. Instead, she found something she hadn't seen in months. Peace. You stood up to a powerful man who tried to use you. You chose dignity over money. That takes courage. Kelly's eyes filled with tears. She'd been expecting anger, shame, regret. Instead, her mother was looking at her like she'd done something heroic. But I lost my job. We need the money for your treatment. Maria's grip tightened. Her eyes took on an intensity that made Kelly's breath catch. There are things I need to tell you. About Liam Howard. About why he really came looking for you. The heart monitor started beeping faster. Kelly glanced at the machine, worried, but Maria pulled her attention back. It wasn't a coincidence, Kelly. None of it was. What do you mean? Maria struggled to sit up higher in the bed. Kelly helped her, adjusting the pillows, trying to make her comfortable. But comfort wasn't what Maria was after. She was after truth. 30 years ago, I worked for the Howard family. Kelly's world tilted. She sank into the bedside chair, her legs suddenly unable to support her weight. I was their housekeeper. Liam was just a little boy then. 5 years old. Sweet. Lonely. His parents were always traveling, always working. I was the one who took care of him. The beeping of the monitors seemed to grow louder, more insistent. Kelly could hear her own heartbeat joining the electronic chorus. I loved that boy like he was my own son. And he loved me back. Called me Mama Maria. Used to cry when I had to go home at night. Kelly's hands were shaking now. She thought of Liam's reaction to her mother's kimbap, the way his voice had cracked when he said it tasted like his mother's cooking. The way he'd cried when he saw Maria in the hospital bed. What happened? Maria's eyes filled with tears, but she continued speaking with the determination of someone who had carried a secret too long. I got pregnant. With you. The Howards were not pleased. They said I couldn't work for them anymore. Said they couldn't trust their son with someone who had made such poor choices. Kelly felt like she was drowning. The room was spinning, the monitors were screaming, and nothing made sense anymore. They fired you because of me? They gave me a choice. Give up my baby for adoption to a family they approved of, or leave their employment with no references, no severance, nothing. The cruelty of it hit Kelly like a physical blow. A young woman, pregnant and alone, forced to choose between her child and her livelihood. I chose you. I chose you every time. Maria was crying now, tears streaming down her cheeks. Kelly reached out to wipe them away, her own vision blurred with emotion. But Liam, he was so young. He didn't understand why I left. Why I never came back. He used to ask his parents about me, but they told him I had died. Kelly's breath caught. They told him you were dead? For 30 years, he believed I was dead. Until 3 months ago. 3 months ago? Maria nodded weakly. The effort of telling this story was draining her, but she pressed on. He hired a private investigator to find out what happened to me. Found out I was alive, living in Chicago. Found out about you. Everything clicked into place. The timing of Liam's appearance at the hotel. The way he'd known exactly how to find her. The employee files he'd accessed. He came looking for me. He came looking for both of us. But he didn't know how to approach us. Didn't know if we'd want to see him. So he created a test. Kelly stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. The city lights blurred through her tears, creating abstract patterns against the dark sky. He wanted to see what kind of person you'd raised. What kind of woman you'd become. Whether you had the same kindness, the same integrity that he remembered in me. So he manipulated me. He protected himself. Maria's voice was gentle but firm. Kelly turned back to face her, seeing her mother with new eyes. This woman had sacrificed everything for her daughter. Had chosen love over security, principle over comfort. He's been alone for 30 years, Kelly. Surrounded by people who want his money, his influence, his power. But never him. Never just him. Kelly thought of the loneliness she'd seen in Liam's eyes when he ate her kimbap. The way he'd savored every bite like he was tasting love itself. When he saw your kindness, your compassion, he saw me. He saw the family he lost. He saw home. The monitors were beeping steadily now, matching the rhythm of Kelly's racing heart. She sank back into the chair, overwhelmed by the weight of this revelation. Why didn't he just tell me? Because he was afraid. Afraid you'd reject him. Afraid you'd see him as the enemy who destroyed your mother's life. Afraid that 30 years of wealth and power had turned him into someone unworthy of the love he remembered. Kelly closed her eyes, trying to process everything. The man she'd thought was a manipulative billionaire was actually a lost little boy, looking for the family that had been stolen from him. He loves us, Kelly. In his broken, complicated way, he loves us. Kelly opened her eyes to find her mother watching her with an expression of infinite tenderness. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Kelly didn't go back to the hotel for 3 days. Her phone remained cracked and silent on the apartment floor, a monument to her destroyed life. She'd expected termination papers, legal threats, maybe even a lawsuit for the viral video that had painted Howard Investments in the worst possible light. Instead, nothing. On the 4th morning, there was a knock at her door. Kelly peered through the peephole, expecting a process server or an angry lawyer. Instead, she saw Mrs. Chen from the apartment management office, holding an envelope that looked too expensive for their rundown building. This came for you. Special delivery. Kelly's hands shook as she opened it. Inside was her hotel paycheck, dated as if she'd worked her full shift that week. No termination letter. No explanation. Just payment for work she hadn't done, signed with an illegible scrawl that could have been anyone's name. But tucked behind the check was something that made her breath catch. A small card with elegant script. Your mother's treatment has been transferred to Northwestern Memorial. Private room. All expenses covered. No questions asked. Kelly's legs gave out. She slid down the apartment door until she was sitting on the floor, staring at the card. Northwestern Memorial was where rich people went to get better. Where miracles happened for those who could afford them. Liam had done this. Even after their public confrontation, even after she'd humiliated him in front of his employees, he'd quietly arranged for her mother to receive the best care money could buy. The guilt hit her like a physical blow. She grabbed her cracked phone and managed to call the hospital through the spider-webbed screen. The receptionist confirmed it with the casual efficiency of someone accustomed to sudden insurance upgrades. Maria Rivera was transferred this morning. Room 1247. Would you like me to connect you? No. I'll be right there. Northwestern Memorial looked like a luxury hotel compared to St. Mary's. Marble floors, fresh flowers, windows that actually let in natural light. Kelly felt underdressed in her 3-day-old clothes, but the staff treated her with the same courtesy they'd show any family member of a private patient. Room 1247 was twice the size of Maria's old room, with a view of Lake Michigan and equipment that looked like it belonged on a spaceship. Maria sat propped up in a bed that probably cost more than Kelly's rent, looking smaller but somehow more alive than she had in weeks. Mija. Maria's voice was stronger. The oxygen mask was gone, replaced by a subtle nasal cannula that didn't hide her face. Her color was better. Her eyes were brighter. Mom, what happened? How did you get here? Maria's smile was knowing, tinged with something that looked like satisfaction. A guardian angel, apparently. Kelly sank into the chair beside the bed, overwhelmed by the luxury surrounding them. Everything was clean, new, expensive. This was what money could buy. This was what she'd rejected. He didn't have to do this. No, he didn't. Maria reached for Kelly's hand, her grip steadier than it had been in months. That's what makes it love, Mija. Doing things you don't have to do. Kelly closed her eyes, fighting back tears. She'd been so angry, so focused on the betrayal, that she'd missed the deeper truth. Liam hadn't just tested her character. He'd been trying to find a way back to the family that had shaped him. I was horrible to him. You were protecting yourself. Just like he was. Maria's voice carried the wisdom of someone who'd had time to think, to process, to understand the complicated dynamics at play. He's been alone for 30 years, Kelly. Do you know what that does to a person? How it changes them. Kelly thought of the loneliness she'd glimpsed in Liam's eyes, the way he'd savored her simple kindness like it was the most precious gift in the world. He's forgotten how to trust, how to love, how to be loved. So he created tests instead of relationships. And you showed him what real love looks like. Unconditional, uncompromising, unwilling to be bought. Kelly opened her eyes to find her mother watching her with an expression of infinite tenderness. He needs us, Kelly. But more than that, we need him. The words hung in the air between them. Kelly wanted to deny it, to insist that they were fine on their own. But sitting in this expensive room, watching her mother breathe easier than she had in months, she couldn't pretend that money didn't matter. I don't know how to forgive him. Start small. Start with gratitude. Maria squeezed Kelly's hand. He gave me a chance to fight. To really fight. That's worth something. Kelly stayed at the hospital until visiting hours ended, watching her mother sleep peacefully for the first time in weeks. The new medications were working. The private nurses were attentive. The room was quiet except for the gentle hum of machines that whispered hope instead of counting down to death. Walking back to her apartment, Kelly felt the weight of possibility pressing down on her shoulders. She could continue nursing her anger, protecting her pride, maintaining her moral superiority. Or she could do something much harder. She could try to understand. The next morning, Kelly found herself walking toward Millennium Park without consciously deciding to go there. Her feet carried her along familiar paths, past the bean sculpture that tourists loved and locals ignored, toward the quieter sections where people came to think. She wasn't surprised to find Liam there. He sat on the same bench where they'd shared tamales just a week ago, though it felt like a lifetime. He wore jeans and a simple sweater, the billionaire CEO costume abandoned in favor of something more human. His head was in his hands, shoulders curved with exhaustion. Kelly approached quietly, her footsteps muffled by the morning dew on the grass. He looked up when she was still 20 feet away, as if some internal radar had detected her presence. Their eyes met across the distance. Neither moved. Neither spoke. The morning air was thick with everything they hadn't said, everything they couldn't take back. Finally, Liam stood. He didn't come closer, respecting the invisible boundary Kelly had drawn around herself. When he spoke, his voice carried across the space between them like a prayer. How is she? Better. Stronger. Kelly's voice was barely above a whisper, but in the morning quiet, it might as well have been a shout. Thank you. Liam nodded once, a sharp jerk of his head that suggested he was fighting his own emotional battle. I'm sorry. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of 30 years of loneliness, of mistakes made and chances missed, of a little boy who'd lost his mama Maria and spent his whole life trying to find his way back to her. Kelly took a step closer. Then another. The distance between them shrank with each movement, but the emotional chasm remained vast. I know. They stood in silence, two people who'd found each other and lost each other in the span of a week. Around them, the city was waking up. Joggers passed by, early commuters cut through the park, life continued its relentless forward motion. But Kelly and Liam remained frozen in their bubble of complicated grief and tentative hope. I don't know how to do this. Kelly's admission hung in the air between them. Liam's eyes searched her face, looking for clues about what this meant. Forgiveness, friendship, something more. Neither do I. His honesty was brutal and beautiful. Here was a man who commanded billions, who made decisions that affected thousands of lives, admitting that he was lost when it came to the simple human connection he craved most. Maybe we figure it out together. The suggestion was so tentative, so fragile, that Kelly was afraid to breathe too hard and shatter it. But Liam's face transformed. Hope flickered in his eyes like a candle flame in a dark room. I'd like that. They sat on the bench together, not touching, barely talking, just existing in the same space without the weight of deception between them. It wasn't forgiveness yet. It wasn't love. But it was a beginning. Kelly's phone buzzed in her pocket. The cracked screen made it difficult to read the message, but she could make out enough to understand. It was from the hospital. Your mother is asking for both of you. Kelly showed Liam the message. His face went pale, then determined. Let's go. They walked to his car in silence, the black sedan that had once seemed like evidence of his deception now just transportation. The drive to Northwestern Memorial was quiet, filled with the kind of tension that comes before important conversations. Maria was awake when they arrived, propped up in her hospital bed with an alertness that was both encouraging and somehow ominous. She looked at Kelly first, then at Liam, her eyes moving between them with the calculating gaze of someone who'd spent a lifetime reading people. Sit down. Both of you. Her voice carried an authority that neither of them questioned. Kelly took the chair beside the bed. Liam remained standing, his posture rigid with tension. Closer, Liam. I'm not going to bite. He moved reluctantly to the foot of the bed, his hands clasped behind his back like a soldier at attention. Maria studied him with the same intensity she'd once used to examine his scraped knees and hurt feelings when he was 5 years old. You look like your father. The words hit Liam like a physical blow. Kelly saw him flinch, saw his carefully constructed composure crack slightly. That's not necessarily a compliment. Maria's smile was sad but understanding. No, it's not. But you have my eyes. The eyes of someone who loves too much and trusts too little. Kelly looked between them, seeing the resemblance for the first time. Not physical, but emotional. Both of them carried the same wariness, the same protective distance that came from being hurt by people they trusted. I need to tell you both something. Something I should have said years ago. Maria's voice took on the quality of someone preparing to unburden herself of a long-held secret. Kelly's stomach clenched with anticipation. Liam, when you were 5, you asked me why you didn't have any brothers or sisters. Do you remember? Liam nodded slowly, his face pale. I told you that sometimes families are small because that makes them more special. But that wasn't the whole truth. Kelly felt the room temperature drop. Something in her mother's tone suggested they were approaching dangerous territory. The truth is, you did have a sibling. You have a sibling. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Kelly's heart stopped beating. Beside her, she could hear Liam's sharp intake of breath. When I left the Howard house, I was pregnant. I'd been involved with someone. Someone I shouldn't have been involved with. Maria's eyes filled with tears, but she pressed on with the determination of someone who'd carried this secret too long. Your father, Liam. I was involved with your father. The room exploded into silence. Kelly couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she was hearing. Kelly is your half-sister. The words hit like lightning strikes. Kelly's vision blurred. Her hands went numb. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear the heart monitor beeping frantically. That's impossible. Liam's voice was barely recognizable, strangled with shock and something that might have been horror. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have told you both before you started to care for each other. Kelly's world tilted off its axis. Everything she'd felt for Liam, every flutter of attraction, every moment of connection, suddenly became twisted and wrong. She thought she might vomit. We're related? Her voice came out as a whisper. Maria nodded, tears streaming down her face. I was young and stupid and in love with a man who was married. When I found out I was pregnant, he gave me money to disappear. To never contact him again. To never tell anyone whose child you were. Kelly stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor with a sound like nails on a chalkboard. She needed air. She needed space. She needed this to not be real. I have to go. She stumbled toward the door, her legs barely supporting her weight. Behind her, she could hear Liam's voice, strained and desperate. Kelly, wait. But she was already running. Down the hallway, past the nurse's station, into the elevator, through the lobby, out into the Chicago afternoon where the air was cold and clean and didn't carry the weight of impossible truths. Kelly found the photograph by accident. She was cleaning out her mother's old jewelry box, looking for something to sell to pay for the medications that insurance wouldn't cover. Her fingers brushed against a hidden compartment she'd never noticed before, and a small envelope fell onto her lap. Inside were 3 photographs, yellowed with age. The first showed a much younger Maria standing outside a hospital, holding a baby. The second was Maria with the same baby, but someone had carefully torn away half the image, removing whoever had been standing beside her. The third photograph made Kelly's blood freeze. It was Maria again, but this time she was holding 2 babies. 2 distinct infants, clearly different ages, wrapped in hospital blankets. One was tiny, newborn small. The other was bigger, maybe 6 months old. Kelly's hands trembled as she turned the photo over. In Maria's careful handwriting, Kelly, 2 days old. Liam, 6 months old. The day I brought them both home. The world tilted sideways. Kelly stared at the photograph until her vision blurred. 2 babies. Maria holding 2 babies. But that was impossible. Maria had told her that Liam was her half-brother, that she'd been involved with his father. But this photo suggested something entirely different. Kelly grabbed her phone and called the hospital, her fingers shaking as she dialed. The nurse's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm sorry, but Mrs. Rivera is sedated for a procedure. She won't be available until tomorrow morning." Kelly hung up and stared at the photograph again. The more she looked, the more questions multiplied in her mind. If Maria had brought both babies home, what did that mean? Had she been caring for Liam as well as Kelly? Had the story about being the Howard family's housekeeper been more complicated than she'd revealed? Kelly grabbed her laptop and started searching. Birth records, hospital admissions, anything that might shed light on what had really happened 30 years ago. Most records were sealed or digitized poorly, but she found fragments. Pieces of a puzzle that didn't match the story she'd been told. Northwestern Memorial Hospital had no record of Maria Rivera giving birth 30 years ago. But Chicago General, a hospital that had been demolished 15 years earlier, had a notation in their archived records. Maria Rivera, admitted for childbirth complications. But the details were frustratingly vague. Kelly's phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello. Kelly, it's Liam." Her heart stopped. She hadn't spoken to him in 2 weeks, not since their confrontation by the lake. His voice sounded strained, exhausted. "I can't talk to you." "Wait, please. I found something. Something about the situation." Kelly's grip tightened on the phone. She looked at the photograph spread on her kitchen table, at the 2 babies in Maria's arms. "What kind of something? Can you meet me? Somewhere public. Somewhere safe." The desperation in his voice made her decision for her. Millennium Park. The bench where we had tamales. 1 hour. Kelly arrived first, clutching the envelope of photographs like a lifeline. The park was busy with afternoon joggers and tourists, providing the public safety net she needed. When Liam appeared, walking toward her with the careful gait of someone carrying explosive information, she noticed he was holding a manila folder. They sat on opposite ends of the bench, the space between them charged with tension and unspoken questions. "You first." Kelly handed him the envelope without explanation. Liam's face went white as he examined the photographs, his hand shaking slightly as he turned over the image of Maria holding 2 babies. "Where did you find this?" "Hidden in my mother's jewelry box." "Liam, if she was holding both of us, then the story she told us was a lie." Liam's voice was flat, but Kelly could see the storm brewing behind his eyes. He opened his manila folder and spread its contents on the bench between them. "I hired a privat investigator, the same one who found Maria in the first place. I asked him to dig deeper into my birth records, my adoption papers, everything." Kelly leaned closer, studying the documents. Birth certificates, hospital records, legal papers covered in official stamps and signatures. "Adoption papers?" "I was adopted, Kelly. Officially adopted by the Howard family when I was 6 months old." Kelly's world shifted again. She grabbed the nearest document, scanning it for information that made sense. "But Maria said she was your father's." "She lied. Or she was protecting someone. Or she was protecting us." Liam pulled out a hospital record, pointing to a section highlighted in yellow. This is from Chicago General. The night you were born, Maria Rivera was admitted with complications during childbirth. But look at this. He pointed to a notation in the margin. Secondary admission, abandoned infant, approximately 6 months old, brought in by same patient. Kelly's breath caught. You were abandoned? Left at the hospital the same night you were born. Maria found me in the nursery and took me home with her. The pieces were falling into place, creating a picture that was both more complicated and more beautiful than the story they'd been told. She saved you. She saved both of us. But when she couldn't afford to care for 2 babies, when the bills got too high and the Howard family offered to adopt me. Liam's voice broke slightly. She let them take me so you could have a better life. Kelly stared at the documents, her mind reeling. Maria hadn't been involved with Liam's father. She'd been a young single mother who'd found an abandoned baby and tried to care for him as her own. When circumstances forced her to choose, she'd given up the child she'd rescued to save the child she'd born. We're not related. The words came out as a whisper. Liam nodded, his eyes fixed on her face. We're not related. We never were. Kelly felt something break open in her chest. Relief, confusion, hope, and terror all crashed together in a wave that left her breathless. Then why did she lie to us? Liam was quiet for a long moment, studying the photograph of Maria holding both babies. Because she saw how we looked at each other, how we connected. And she was terrified. Terrified of what? Of losing us again. Both of us. Kelly looked at him, understanding dawning slowly. She thought if we got involved romantically, if it didn't work out, we'd both disappear from her life. Just like I did 30 years ago. The cruelty of it hit Kelly like a physical blow. Maria had lied to protect herself, to ensure that the family she'd lost and found again wouldn't be destroyed by romantic complications. She was dying, Kelly. She's still dying. The thought of losing both of us again. Liam's voice trailed off, but Kelly understood. Fear made people do desperate things. Love made them do even more desperate things. What do we do now? The question hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they could cross. They weren't siblings. They weren't related. But they also weren't the same people who'd shared tamales on this bench 3 weeks ago. Too much had happened. Too many lies had been told and uncovered. I don't know. Liam's honesty was brutal and refreshing. Kelly studied his face, seeing him clearly for the first time in weeks. Not as a forbidden love or a lost brother, but as a man who'd been as confused and manipulated as she had been. I know I've missed you. The admission escaped before Kelly could stop it. Liam's eyes snapped to hers, hope flickering in their depths. I've missed you too. Every day. Every hour. They sat in silence, the weight of possibility settling between them like snow. Kelly thought of all the moments they'd shared, all the connections they'd felt, all the feelings they'd been forced to suppress. I'm scared. Kelly's voice was barely audible, but Liam heard her. Of what? Of this. Of us. Of what happens if we try and it doesn't work. Liam reached across the space between them, his fingers barely brushing hers. What happens if we don't try and spend the rest of our lives wondering? Kelly looked down at their almost touching hands. Such a small gesture, but it felt like the most significant moment of her life. Your mother is going to be furious. Kelly's laugh was shaky but genuine. Liam smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him in weeks. Our mother is going to be furious. The correction was gentle but important. Maria might not have given birth to Liam, but she'd raised him for the first 6 months of his life. She'd loved him enough to let him go. She'd mourned him for 30 years. In every way that mattered, she was his mother too. We should tell her. Together. Liam nodded, his fingers finally closing around hers. Together. They walked to Northwestern Memorial hand in hand, their fingers intertwined like teenagers on a first date. Kelly felt giddy and terrified in equal measure. Everything had changed again, but this time the change felt like possibility rather than destruction. Maria was awake when they entered her room, propped up in her hospital bed with the alert expression of someone who'd been expecting this confrontation. Her eyes went immediately to their joined hands, and Kelly saw a flash of something that might have been panic cross her face. "We know." Kelly's words were gentle but firm. Maria's face crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks before she could stop them. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was scared and selfish and—" "You were protecting your family." Liam's voice was soft, understanding. He approached the bed slowly, Kelly beside him, their hands still linked. "Both of us. You were protecting both of us." Maria looked between them, seeing the resolution in their faces, the decision they'd made together. "Are you angry?" Kelly considered the question seriously. Was she angry? At the lies, the manipulation, the weeks of confusion and pain? Or was she grateful for a mother who'd loved them both enough to sacrifice her own happiness for what she thought was their well-being? "I'm grateful." The words surprised Kelly even as she spoke them, but she realized they were true. "You saved him. You saved both of us. And when you thought we needed saving from each other, you tried to do that too." Maria's sobs intensified, but they sounded like relief now rather than despair. "I love you both so much. I couldn't bear to lose you again." Liam sat on the edge of the bed, still holding Kelly's hand. "You're not losing us. You're never losing us again." Kelly squeezed his fingers, feeling the truth of his words settle into her bones. They were family now, all three of them, bound not by blood but by choice. By love. By the determination to build something beautiful from the wreckage of their complicated past. "What happens now?" Maria's question was directed at both of them, but her eyes lingered on their joined hands. Kelly looked at Liam, seeing her own hopes reflected in his face. "Now we figure it out. All of it. Together." Liam brought their joined hands to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to Kelly's knuckles. "Now we go home." Maria smiled through her tears, the expression transforming her face from exhausted patient to proud mother. "Home sounds perfect." 6 months later, Kelly stood in the renovated lobby of the Grant Lodge Hotel, watching Liam address a room full of employees. The space had been transformed, the cold marble replaced with warm wood, the intimidating formality replaced with welcoming comfort. "The Heart First program isn't just about customer service," Liam was saying, his voice carrying easily through the space. "It's about seeing every person who walks through our doors as someone worthy of dignity and respect, regardless of their appearance or circumstances." Kelly smiled, remembering the night they'd brainstormed the program name. Heart First. Because that's how they'd learned to approach everything now. With their hearts leading, their heads following, their past informing but not dictating their future. "Our program director will explain the specifics." Liam's eyes found Kelly's across the room, his smile warm and proud. Kelly Rivera Howard has personal experience with both sides of hospitality. She knows what it feels like to be judged by appearances, and she knows what it feels like to extend kindness without expectation of reward. Kelly stepped forward, her wedding ring catching the light as she moved. 6 months engaged, 2 months married, and she still felt a thrill every time someone used her new name. The employees listened attentively as she outlined the program they'd developed together. Training modules on unconscious bias. Role-playing exercises. Monthly reviews focused not just on efficiency but on empathy. "Every guest has a story," Kelly concluded. "Our job isn't to judge that story. Our job is to make sure their chapter with us is one they remember fondly." After the presentation, as employees filtered out with their new training materials, Kelly found herself alone with Liam in the lobby that had once been the scene of her greatest humiliation. "Think it will work?" Liam wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "I think we're proof that impossible things can work if you want them badly enough." Kelly leaned back against his chest, feeling the solid warmth of him, the steady beat of his heart against her back. "Maria's discharge papers came through today." "I heard. She's excited about the new apartment." They'd bought a place big enough for all three of them, with a guest suite designed specifically for Maria's needs. Not because she couldn't live independently, but because none of them wanted to live independently anymore. They'd found each other against impossible odds. They weren't letting go again. She wants to cook dinner tonight. Real dinner, not hospital food. Think she's up for it? Kelly turned in his arms, studying his face. The worry was still there, probably always would be. The fear of losing the people he loved. But it was balanced now by hope, by the daily proof that some things lasted. I think she's been planning the menu for weeks. Liam laughed, the sound echoing through the empty lobby. Then we better stop at the grocery store on the way home. Such a simple word, but it carried the weight of everything they'd built together. Not just the apartment they shared, but the life they'd created. The family they'd chosen. The love they'd fought for. Kelly stood on her toes and kissed him, right there in the lobby where it all began. Where a tired night shift worker had offered kindness to a stranger, not knowing she was offering her heart to the man who would become her home. Ready to go home, Mr. Howard? Liam's smile was radiant, transforming his face from handsome to beautiful. Ready to go home, Mrs. Howard. They walked out of the hotel together, hand in hand, leaving behind the ghosts of who they'd been and stepping into the promise of who they were becoming. Behind them, the Grant Lodge Hotel stood ready to welcome its next guests, its next stories, its next impossible love affairs. But Kelly and Liam's story was just beginning. In the car, driving through the Chicago streets they'd both learned to call home, Kelly's phone buzzed with a text from Maria. Dinner at 7. Don't be late. I'm making tamales. Kelly showed the message to Liam, who laughed so hard he had to pull over. Tamales. She says they're a symbol of new beginnings. Everything's a symbol with her now. Everything is a symbol. Kelly leaned across the center console to kiss his cheek. We're a symbol. Of impossible things becoming possible. Of love finding a way. Liam caught her hand and brought it to his lips, pressing a kiss to her palm. What are we a symbol of today? Kelly considered the question, watching the city pass by outside their windows. People hurrying home from work, couples walking hand in hand, families gathered in restaurant windows sharing meals and stories. Today we're a symbol of home. Liam squeezed her hand. I like that symbol. Me too. They drove the rest of the way in comfortable silence, both lost in their own thoughts but connected by the invisible thread that had drawn them together from the very beginning. Love, Kelly had learned, wasn't just about finding the right person. It was about becoming the right person. It was about choosing each other every day, even when the choice was difficult. Especially when the choice was difficult. The apartment building came into view, its windows glowing with warm light. Somewhere up there, Maria was cooking dinner for her family. Her chosen family. Her impossible, beautiful, complicated family that had found each other against all odds and decided to hold on tight. Kelly squeezed Liam's hand as they pulled into the parking garage. You know what the best part is? What? This is just the beginning. Liam turned off the engine and looked at her, his eyes soft with love and promise. The beginning of what? Kelly smiled, thinking of all the tomorrows stretching ahead of them. All the dinners with Maria, all the challenges they'd face at the hotel, all the ordinary moments that would make up their extraordinary life. Everything. They got out of the car and walked toward the elevator, toward home, toward the family waiting for them upstairs. Behind them, the city continued its relentless pulse, full of stories waiting to be told, connections waiting to be made, impossible things waiting to become possible. But Kelly and Liam were no longer looking for impossible things. They had found each other. They had found home. And that was more than enough.